we bring on a UNC legend, Bryn Renner. He is amongst the top 5 in passing yards and passing touchdowns and a whole bunch of other stats at UNC. And his alma mater just got a doozy of a report that Bill Belichick likely to be their head coach. Bryn, appreciate you for joining us again on such short notice. Just first reactions when the Bill Belichick. Let's even go back to the first interview. When the report was out there that he was interviewing for your Tar Heels, what does that do to your mindset?
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was like everybody else in America. I think I was very shocked and honestly pleased from a couple different standpoints. Obviously, Carolina is near and dear to my heart, but his experience and his expertise and knowledge of the game of football and what it can provide a young man who's, 17, 18, 19 years old and now going to be 20, 21 at the stage we are with college athletics, I think I was fired up. And no matter if it was Carolina or another school, his ability to teach the techniques of football, his ability to grow the game and the knowledge, grow coaches within the game. And I was watching the Pat McAfee show when he went on there, and his explanation of what his goals and what it would look like if, and he used that word if in capital letters with Pat McAfee, what it would be, it fired me up. I think that news of him potentially becoming the next head coach of North Carolina is something that's going to be not only good for the university, but if it does happen, for the entire college football landscape.
Now, there's been just a wide array of reports about what was discussed. One of them is that Bill Belichick is coming in with massive amounts of demands as far as financial commitment, right? I need this much for salary, this much for my assistants, this much for the players, this much for NIL commitments and everything else. What does it say about your Tar Heels that it appears as if they're at least going to get close to some of those demands when in the past maybe they haven't had the over-the-top financial commitment to the football program?
Yeah, I think initially, this is an old quote. I don't know if it's from Nick Saban or I've heard it before in the football buildings that I've been. It takes what it takes. And by that meaning, it takes what it takes financially. It takes what it takes from everyone in the building, whether that's a staff member or the chef that's making the nutrition. I think it takes what it takes nowadays in college football, and it always has, to be a really successful program. It takes a ton of buy-in from the faculty support. It takes a ton of buy-in from the board of trustees making decisions, from Bubba Cunningham, the athletic department, and it shows that North Carolina is here to play football. And I think for a long time, and even since I go back to when I was recruited at 18 years old by Butch Davis, that has always been the desire and goal for the university. I think every university wants to have a successful football program, but it shows that we're willing to, as a university, go and get the elite of the elite. And if you look at Carolina, that's always been the case, with our women's soccer program, with our field hockey program. I think that's been what Carolina hangs its hat on, and it's very refreshing to see that, obviously there's still negotiations and things that need to be finalized, but just having this discussion, it means a lot to the University of North Carolina, but along with the state, and about how much football matters within the state.
Bryn Renner, former UNC quarterback, joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, talking the reports of Bill Belichick and UNC being near the end of an agreement to make Bill Belichick the head coach of Bryn's Tar Heels. Bryn, I just brought up your 247 profile here, so we're going to do a little mental exercise.
All right.
We've got Bryn Renner. It's back in like 08, 09. 76th national recruit in the country, 5th pro-style quarterback. Some of the offers, obviously UNC, Maryland, Michigan State. You have your options, and many others. I'm not going to read his full deal. Just know that Bryn had he got the full recruiting experience. How do you think Bill Belichick plays as a recruiter to somebody 18 years old with options? And what I mean by that is, I don't see him showing up at a ton of in-home recruiting visits or, being seen in the stands of your high school football game. But his name carries some kind of weight. Like, going from pro, where so much of the negotiations are done with dollars and cents, to college, where the recruiting is more personal. How do you think Bill Belichick would have played when he was recruiting you against the likes of some other ACC and Big Ten programs?
I would have signed up immediately. And I say that in full confidence because when I was getting recruited by North Carolina, it was Butch Davis's actually quasi-second recruiting class, and I was the first quarterback that he recruited.
Mm-hmm.
I went there, Tim, because I wanted to be a professional football player. And that was number one on my list. And number two was I wanted to be surrounded by people that would get me better at football and that I knew had the best interest in a game plan and a skill set that they could improve my skills from high school to college because the game changes. I think that's the biggest jump from high school to college. I really do. And I've played at all three levels and had the opportunity to do that. But with that being said, to answer your question, Coach Belichick, if he is the head coach, is going to be a lot like my recruiting visit with Butch Davis. He sat down and was a very good recruiter at Miami, but he had a vision and goal for where I would fit in within the offense. It was a pro-style offense that John Shoup wanted to run. I had a phenomenal relationship with John Shoup, and he got me better as a quarterback from a footwork standpoint, learning defenses. I learned defensive football before I even learned our offensive plays because that's how vital it is. And nowadays, I think kids want that opportunity to say, hey, I want to learn from Coach Belichick and soak up the knowledge that he has. Yes. Do I think a relationship is important to have on a certain level where you have to, have hard conversations about being 18 to 22 years old? Yes. But I think the ultimate goal you're seeing nowadays with the likes of Deion Sanders, the likes of, a guy like Trent Dilfer at UAB, their resume speaks for itself because they've been where you have been. And I think you really can't put a price tag on the experience of a guy being in the NFL for the longevity that Coach Belichick had. And it was similar to when I had conversations with Coach Davis. It was very black and white. Hey, do you want to be a pro? And that's kind of where we stand in the landscape of football and all college athletics. I think no one's shying away that the professional ranks is what everyone's striving to go to. So I think if, my 18-year-old self could get recruited by that and learn and pick the brain of Bill Belichick, I think I would sign up tomorrow. And I think, if you look at the guys that were on my roster at Carolina, you had Giovanni Bernard, a 10-year pro. You had Jonathan Cooper, a 7th overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals left guard. James Hurst was a 5-star recruit that played 10 years in the NFL. You had Brennan Williams, a 4th-round draft pick at right tackle. You had Travis Bond, who was a 3rd-round pick to the Minnesota Vikings. And the litany of guys, Russell Bodine, the starting center of Fort Union Military Academy, was a pro as well. I had 5 offensive linemen that went pro. I played a little bit in the league. And our number one goal there was to soak up the knowledge of the entire staff. We had Sam Pittman as the offensive line coach, Charlie Williams as the receiver coach. We had, Alan Modridge as the tight ends coach, who all have had pro experience. And that is something that you really can't replicate to a college 18-year-old kid because that's the success level that they have had in their careers.
Bryn, I appreciate you for taking the time, and every time UNC news breaks, we're hitting you up to move your schedule around and get on the show. So I appreciate it. I know you got somewhere to be, so we'll let you go. But thanks again.
Tim, thanks so much. You do a great job. Happy to be on.
There it is. Bryn Renner, former UNC quarterback, talking about the potential hiring of Bill Belichick as the head coach of his Tar Heels. There are more similarities than you think to the Butch Davis hiring and Bill Belichick's. I think it's a quality thing where it's like, oh, a guy with NFL experience. Oh, a guy with ties to the Browns. Oh, a guy that wants to have those conversations about I'll turn you into a pro. It's just a little different of a level, right? It's the different, same species, different beast. You know what I mean? So it's like the same logic behind it. Just, I think there's no disrespect to Butch Davis. I don't think it's, an insult to say you don't have 6 Super Bowl rings. 8 if you include as a coordinator.